Sometimes the deepest pain is not failure. It is realizing that when you are struggling, when your heart is heavy, when your spirit is tired, no one is watching, no applause, no encouragement, no one checking if you are okay. And in that silence, God is asking you a gentle but powerful question. Will you still move forward even when nobody cares? There comes a moment in every soul's journey where the world becomes quiet around you. Messages stop coming. Support fades. People you expected to stand beside you are busy with their own lives. And suddenly, you are alone with your thoughts, your doubts, and your prayers. This moment can feel like abandonment, but in truth, it is an invitation. An invitation from God to discover who you are when no one is watching and who you trust when no one is cheering. Many people give up not because the road is impossible, but because the road is lonely. They expected encouragement, validation, recognition. Expected someone to say, "You're doing great, keep going." But faith does not grow in applause. Faith grows in silence. Faith grows when the only voice you hear is God whispering within your heart, saying, "I am with you, even here." When nobody cares, something sacred is revealed. You begin to see your true intentions. Are you walking this path for praise, or are you walking it because God placed it in your heart? Are you praying because people see you, or because your soul needs God to survive? The absence of attention strips away illusion and leaves only truth. God never promised that everyone would understand your journey. He never said the world would clap for your obedience. Even Jesus walked roads where people turned away, doubted him, and eventually abandoned him. The Son of God himself knew what it meant to be unseen, misunderstood, and alone. Yet he continued not for applause, but for purpose. There is a quiet strength that forms when you keep going without recognition. When you wake up early to pray and no one knows. When you choose discipline while others choose comfort. When you resist temptation and no one praises your restraint. These unseen moments are seen by God. Every tear you wipe away in private, every prayer whispered in the dark, every step taken when your heart feels heavy, none of it is wasted. When nobody cares, you are invited to do it for yourself, but more deeply, to do it for God. To live in a way that honors the calling placed on your life, even when the world is distracted. This is where real transformation begins, not in public victories, but in private obedience. The world teaches us to measure our worth by attention, by likes, by approval, by being noticed. But God measures your faith by your perseverance, by your willingness to remain faithful when rewards are delayed, by your courage to continue even when no one is watching. There will be days when your prayers feel unanswered, days when progress feels invisible, days when you wonder if any of it matters. In those moments, remember this truth: roots grow in darkness. The deepest strength is formed where eyes cannot see. God often does his greatest work in the hidden places of your life. You are not being ignored. You are being prepared. You are being shaped for a purpose greater than validation. The silence around you is not rejection. It is refinement. God is teaching you to stand firm without leaning on applause, to trust without needing proof, to move forward with faith as your only companion. When nobody cares, you learn to care for your soul. You learn to listen more closely to God's voice. You learn that motivation rooted in faith is stronger than motivation rooted in praise. Because praise fades, but purpose remains. There is a peace that comes when you stop needing others to notice your growth. When you realize that God sees you fully, completely, and lovingly. When his approval becomes enough. That peace cannot be taken away because it does not depend on people. You were never meant to be carried by crowds. You were meant to be guided by God. And sometimes God removes the crowd so you can hear him clearly. So you can learn to walk by faith and not by sight. so you can become strong enough to stand even when the world turns away. This season where nobody seems to care is not the end of your story. It is the quiet chapter where your faith is deepened, your character is strengthened, and your soul is aligned with God's purpose. Do not rush through it. Do not resent it. Let it shape you. Keep praying. Keep choosing what is right, not because someone is watching, but because God is working within you. And one day, you will look back and realize that the moments you thought were empty were actually full of divine preparation. It is a sacred discipline in continuing when your emotions no longer carry you forward, when enthusiasm fades, when passion feels distant. When motivation no longer comes naturally, faith becomes your anchor. Faith is not a feeling. It is a decision made again and again, especially on days when the heart feels tired. And God honors the faith that remains when emotions are silent. Many people believe strength means never feeling weak. But true spiritual strength is revealed when you feel weak and still choose obedience. When you rise, not because you feel inspired, but because you trust God's direction. When nobody cares, you are invited into this deeper strength, kind that does not depend on circumstances. You may wonder why God allows seasons where you feel forgotten, why prayers seem to echo without response, why the road feels longer than expected. But God is not absent in these moments. He is teaching you endurance. He is teaching you to walk without constant reassurance. Just as a child must eventually learn to stand without holding a hand, God sometimes steps back so your faith can learn to stand on its own. There is wisdom in this divine distance. It reveals whether you trust God only when things feel good, or whether your trust remains when the path is uncertain. Faith that survives silence becomes unshakable, because it is no longer dependent on signs or outcomes, but rooted in trust. When nobody cares, distractions fall away. You begin to see clearly. You see which voices matter too much, which opinions shaped your decisions, which expectations were never meant to guide your life. Gently removes these layers, not to hurt you, but to free you, to bring you back to the truth of who you are and why you were created. You were not created to be validated by the world. You were created to live in alignment with God's will. And alignment often requires solitude. It requires quiet moments where the noise of the world no longer drowns out the voice of God. In these moments, God speaks not loudly, but clearly. He speaks through patience, through stillness, through the quiet realization that you are stronger than you thought. You can continue without applause, that you can remain faithful without reward, that your purpose is not fragile even when support disappears. There is a holy resilience that forms in the soul when you continue despite being unseen. This resilience cannot be shaken by rejection or delay, because it is built on something eternal. It is built on the understanding that God's timing is perfect even when it feels slow, that His plans are unfolding even when you cannot see progress. You may feel like your efforts are unnoticed, like your sacrifices are invisible. Nothing done with a sincere heart is ever unseen by God. He records what the world ignores. He treasures what others overlook. Your quiet obedience is precious to Him. Do not measure your journey by how others respond. Measure it by how closely you walk with God. Of the greatest spiritual victories happen in private, where no one applauds, where no one congratulates you, where the only witness is God Himself. In these moments, your faith becomes personal, no longer borrowed from others, no longer sustained by community or encouragement. It becomes yours, tested, refined, strengthened. This is the faith that carries you through storms because it has already survived silence. When nobody cares, you begin to understand that God's approval is enough, that His presence is sufficient. His guidance is steady even when the world is unstable. This understanding brings peace, not the absence of struggle, the presence of trust. You may not see immediate results. You may not feel progress every day, but faith is not about speed. It is about direction. As long as you are moving toward God, even slowly, you are exactly where you need to be. The hardest truth is also the most freeing one. No one else can walk this path for you. No one else can believe for you. No one else can choose obedience in your place. And that is not a burden, it is a blessing. Because it means your relationship with God is deeply personal, uniquely yours. Let the loneliness refine you, not harden you. Let the silence draw you closer to God, not push you away. Let the absence of attention teach you to listen inward, where God's voice speaks peace. You are not alone in this journey, even when it feels that way. God walks beside you in every unseen step, and He is shaping you into someone who does not need to be noticed to be faithful. There is a moment when the soul stops asking, "Who will support me?" and begins asking, "Who am I becoming?" This shift is quiet, almost unnoticeable, yet it changes everything. When nobody cares, your focus is no longer outward. It turns inward, toward God, toward truth, toward the refining work happening inside you. This is where discipline becomes devotion, where consistency becomes prayer, where showing up each day, even tired, even discouraged, becomes an act of worship. Not loud worship, not public worship, but the sacred kind that happens in obedience and trust. God often builds His strongest servants away from the crowd. Moses was alone in the desert. David was unseen in the fields. Elijah heard God not in the storm, but in the still small voice. Again and again reminds us that God reveals Himself most clearly in solitude, not because He wants you isolated, but because He wants you undistracted. When nobody cares, your heart is exposed. You can no longer pretend. You can no longer perform. All that remains is your true relationship with God, and in that honesty, healing begins. Because God does not work with masks. He works with surrender. You may feel tired of being strong, tired of carrying burdens quietly, tired of believing when doubt feels louder than hope. But God sees your fatigue, and He does not condemn it. He meets it with grace. He whispers strength into weary hearts. He reminds you that even rest can be an act of faith. Do not confuse silence with abandonment. Is often closest when he feels farthest. Like a teacher during an exam, he steps back not because he has left, because it is time for you to trust what you have learned. Time for your faith to stand without constant guidance. When nobody cares, you learn to listen more carefully. You begin to notice God in simple moments, in breath, in stillness, in the quiet resolve to continue. These moments may not look impressive to the world, but they are sacred. There is a humility that forms when you realize you cannot force recognition, that you cannot control outcomes. All you can do is remain faithful. This humility softens the heart. It removes pride. It replaces striving with surrender. It does not rush transformation. He allows it to unfold slowly, deeply, completely. He is more concerned with who you are becoming than what you are achieving. And when nobody cares, this truth becomes clear, running through the park, because the only progress that matters is the one happening within your soul. You may wonder if your prayers are strong enough, if your faith is enough, if you are enough. Hear this gently. God is not measuring you by perfection. He is meeting you in sincerity. A broken prayer offered honestly is more powerful than polished words spoken without faith. There is beauty in perseverance without recognition, in choosing kindness when it goes unnoticed, in choosing integrity when compromise would be easier, in choosing faith when fear would make more sense. These choices shape your spirit in ways no applause ever could. When nobody cares, you are freed from comparison. There is no one to compete with, no one to impress, only God to walk with. And in that freedom, peace grows. a peace that does not depend on success or failure, but on trust. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not falling behind. Timing does not follow human urgency. He is patient, deliberate, and precise. What feels delayed to you is often divine protection or preparation. This season is not meant to break you. It is meant to build you. Root your faith deeper than emotion, to anchor your identity in God rather than in approval, to teach you how to stand when no one stands with you. And one day, when your path opens and others begin to notice your strength, you will know where it came from. Not from praise, but from prayer. Not from attention, but from alignment with God. Until then, keep walking. Keep trusting. Keep believing. God is closer than you think even now. Especially now comes a quiet moment when you stop resisting the season you are in. You no longer ask God to remove the struggle, but instead ask Him to reveal what it is shaping within you. This is a sign of spiritual maturity. It means your faith has moved beyond comfort and into trust. When nobody cares, your prayers change. They become simpler. Less about outcomes, more about alignment. Less about asking God to fix everything, more about asking Him to guide you through it. In this simplicity, prayer becomes honest, and honesty opens the door for God's presence to move freely in your life. God does not waste seasons of waiting. Every delay carries wisdom. Every pause holds purpose. What feels like stagnation is often deep growth beneath the surface. Just as seeds remain unseen before they rise, your faith is developing in ways that cannot yet be measured. There is strength in accepting that not everyone is meant to walk with you forever. Some people were only meant to be part of a chapter, not the entire story. When they leave, it does not mean you failed. It means God is making space for what is next. When nobody cares, God invites you to care for what truly matters. Your soul, your integrity, your relationship with Him. These are the foundations that remain when everything else shifts. Build on them, and you will not be shaken. You may feel tempted to give up, to grow numb, to protect your heart by lowering your expectations. But God calls you to remain open, to remain faithful, to continue loving, believing, and hoping even when it feels risky. Faith is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to trust God despite it. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you have endured, that you did not quit when it would have been easier to walk away. You remained faithful in unseen places. This confidence does not boast. It rests. It knows who it belongs to. God's work in you is often invisible to others, but it is deeply real. He is strengthening your discernment, teaching you patience, refining your character, preparing you for responsibilities you cannot yet imagine. The silence is not empty. It is full of divine activity. When nobody cares, you begin to understand that validation from the world is temporary, but God's presence is eternal. You no longer chase recognition. You no longer fear obscurity. You find contentment in knowing that God sees you completely. This understanding brings freedom. Freedom from resentment. Freedom from comparison. Freedom from the need to prove yourself. You are already known, already loved, already held by God. You were never meant to draw your worth from the attention of others. Your worth was established by God before anyone else had an opinion. When you live from this truth, you move differently. You walk calmly. You speak gently. You endure patiently. Let this season teach you to trust God in the unseen, to believe in progress you cannot measure, to remain faithful without evidence. This is the kind of faith that moves mountains, not because it demands results, because it rests in God's sovereignty. One day, you will look back and realize that the time when nobody cared was the time when God was shaping you most, when your faith became unbreakable, when your heart learned to remain steady, when your spirit learned to rely fully on Him. Until that day, remain faithful, remain gentle, Remain grounded in God's truth. He is with you in the silence. He is with you in the waiting. He is with you even now. There is a sacred rhythm to seasons of solitude, a divine cadence that teaches patience and endurance. When nobody cares, you learn to listen differently. You begin to notice the subtleties of God's guidance, the quiet nudges of the Spirit, the moments of clarity that come when all distractions have fallen away. These are not small things. They are the invisible threads God weaves into your life, connecting each step you take with a purpose far beyond what your eyes can see. Your journey in these quiet times becomes a testament to resilience. You discover the power of small, consistent actions done with faith, prayer whispered in the dark, a decision made to do what is right even if unseen, a sacrifice made without expectation. Each of these is a seed planted in obedience, watered with trust, and nurtured by God's unseen hand. Over time, will grow into blessings far greater than recognition could ever offer. When nobody cares, you are invited to surrender control, release the need to manage outcomes, to stop demanding that life makes sense on your timetable. Surrender is not weakness. It is strength under authority. It is trust that God's timing is perfect even when your heart struggles to understand it. It is the quiet confidence that every step taken in faith is never wasted, even when invisible. In these moments, God refines your heart. He softens areas hardened by disappointment. He strengthens areas weakened by fear. He teaches patience where impatience once ruled. And He reminds you gently but clearly that true fulfillment is not found in applause, but in alignment with His will. You will begin to notice subtle shifts, moments of grace that feel like whispers of reassurance, encounters with people who touch your heart in unexpected ways, opportunities that appear when you are ready to embrace them. These are signs that your faithfulness, even when unseen, is being honored. They are reminders that God is always present, always attentive, and always working, even in the silence. There is also humility in this process. Humility that comes from realizing that the journey is never solely about you. It is about God's glory, His purpose, the lives He touches through your obedience. When nobody cares, you are free to give your best without seeking reward, to love without expectation, and to serve without recognition. This is the highest form of freedom, a soul liberated to walk fully in God's plan. And as you continue, you will find an inner joy that cannot be taken away. Joy not dependent on circumstances, not reliant on validation, not fleeting. A joy rooted in the unshakable truth that God sees you, knows you, and is with you every step of the way. In this joy, you discover peace. In this peace, you find strength. And in this strength, you can face the world calmly, courageously, and faithfully. This is the blessing of walking when nobody cares. It is the hidden glory of faith that perseveres. It is the quiet miracle of a heart aligned with God, moving forward in obedience, courage, and love. And now, with this understanding settled in your heart, we can gently close the message. Take a deep breath and let this truth sink in. Even when nobody cares, God cares. Even when the world is silent, He is speaking. Even when recognition fades, His love remains constant. You are never unseen, never forgotten, and never alone. Let your heart rest in the knowledge that every effort, every prayer, every act of faith matters to Him. Let it remind you that your purpose is eternal, your worth is unshakable, and your journey is guided by divine wisdom. Go forward in peace, knowing that your perseverance, your faith, and your love are seen by the one who matters most. Walk in courage, walk in hope, walk with God, and remember, when nobody cares, that is precisely the moment to do it for yourself, for your soul, and for the one who has never stopped caring.